Hi, I'm Sarah Curry, and I serve as the research director at Iowans for Tax Relief Foundation. We're launching a new initiative today to help parents, school board members, taxpayers, and just really everybody in Iowa learn a little bit more about what their school districts are doing and how students are doing. It's really important to me personally because I'm a mom and I've got 3 kids here in Iowa that are attending public school. So, just like any parent, I want what's best for my kids, a quality education that sets them up for success. And we're joined by David Hoyt.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm David Hoyt. I'm the Executive Director of School Boards for Academic Excellence, and we are a nationwide network of state-based organizations that are giving school board members and other stakeholders tools like this to try to make education better across the country.
So ITR Foundation is partnering with David and his group to launch ITR Report Card. And the goal is really simple. We want to give parents, taxpayers, and school board members objective, clear data about their school boards. Right now, Iowa school board members make really important decisions about taxes and spending and curriculum, but a lot of them don't have information to these key pieces that they need to really be part of the process or even change the trajectory of a school district. David, can you tell us a little bit more about why is this so important and why parents and school board members need to be engaged at another level?
Absolutely, yeah. So the thing about education reform is there are reforms that are ready at hand that can be implemented. But in order to begin those conversations and start moving things in a better direction, and I think everybody can agree, we all want better education for our children. The most important step is to get an assessment of where you're at and to have transparency and know the key information like what is your graduation rate? What percentage of third graders are reading at grade level or even literate? How well are they doing in civics? What is the percentage of instructional spending versus administrative and other? And this is one of the best tools, if not the best in the country that I've seen to provide transparency on all that.
Well, thanks. So David mentions a lot of these metrics, and you're probably thinking, how do I find those metrics? Where would I be able to share those with our school board members? The great thing is that ITR has launched ITR Local, and we've seen really positive outcomes from people taking our information and going to their city council members and to their county board of supervisors, really just starting a conversation. Why are we spending money here? Why are my taxes so high? Thank you for doing a good job in keeping taxes low. It's really on both sides, but we haven't seen that engagement at the school board level. And so we are creating this new initiative that will highlight easy to understand spending metrics, performance profiles, enrollment trends, and much, much more so that everyone in the community can have the facts that matter for our children's education and also help facilitate these conversations. Parents should know their school board members and they should have open lines of communication. And sometimes that intimidation factor is so high because they don't know the information or they don't know what questions to ask. And we're here to bridge that gap and help parents get the information and feel empowered to talk to their school board members, ultimately for our children, so that way they can do better.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we've seen across the country where a lot of times parents have engaged with school boards in a less constructive manner. And the common element between the parents who are engaging in a more constructive manner is they come in prepared. They have the information that they need to make a compelling case to the school board that, hey, whatever this number is, this other school board across the state, they're doing Y when we're doing X. And those kinds of comparisons that are backed by data are really the only way to effectively engage and then begin to make real change.
Yeah. And so when we look at all of these data metrics, you're probably thinking, what's the most important piece? And we talked about this, David. What do you think for parents and really school board members too? What is the most important piece of data or metric that people should be focused on?
Well, one of them is certainly the third grade literacy rate. And there's a lot of research to back up the assertion that if kids don't learn how to read by third grade, they basically get into a vicious cycle where it becomes extremely difficult for them to catch up. And so with this tool now, you can go see in your specific district what percentage of the kids are reading at grade level. And so that's going to affect their future life opportunities. And it's also going to affect the fiscal impact on the municipality. There's a really good study that I saw recently from the Education Consumers Foundation that calculated the total impact of cost to local government, state, and federal government when kids don't graduate knowing how to read. and it's astronomical. So investing wisely in education, where it's actually increasing reading outcomes, can pay dividends for the municipal, state, and federal government in terms of taxes and spending.
Yeah, and talking about taxes, the reason why ITR Foundation really got engaged in this is because one of the largest spending pieces at the state level is on education. K through 12 makes up a huge portion of the state budget. And then in addition, 50% or more of our property taxes go to your local school boards. And so K through 12 education is a huge financial burden on the state. And while we value education, we want to make sure those dollars are being spent effectively in the classroom and for students. So that way they can grow and that they can be assets in society. We have a growing global economy. And Iowans are not going to be able to just stay in Iowa. My kids are going to grow up and I'm sure they're going to go out of state or have colleagues out of state. And so we need to make sure that our children are competitive nationwide. What do you see, since you do work all over the country and you work with groups like us all over the country? What are you seeing about that and why is it so important?
Right. Yeah. No, the budgetary aspect is critically important. And in order to stay competitive, like you said, in a very competitive environment, it's important that kids get the best possible education. And if you look at what goes on in a lot of other states, so for instance, somewhat notoriously in Illinois, there are a number of school districts where they were spending as much as $35,000 per pupil, and yet literally 0% of kids were at levels of proficiency. And so increasing spending does not necessarily translate directly into improved academic outcomes. You have to spend money wisely. One of the things that I love about this tool is it provides district by district data on what is the percentage of instructional spending versus non-instructional spending. And there's a research basis for the idea that when you increase funding, I think Cato Institute did a good study on this, increasing funding and flatlining outcomes is very common. But there are ways to get around that. And so one of the key ways is increasing the percentage of instructional spending. So what that does is it differentiates between, is this actually going to teachers in the classroom? Are they getting better books and materials? Or is it going to administrative bloat or perhaps underutilized facilities and land? In which case, you can make adjustments to look at what are the school districts in Iowa that are doing better on those metrics? What can we do to emulate them?
Yeah, and we see it, looking at the data, I've seen school districts that have astronomical property tax growth and their third grade reading scores are stagnant or going down. And then I see some districts that are holding the line, keeping taxes quite reasonable for their residents, and they're at 96%. Third grade reading literacy achievement. So it's very diverse across the state. It really depends. ITR Foundation hopes that we can bring similarly minded school board members together so they can learn. Maybe someone from Sioux City can teach someone in Muscatine how to do it better. And then we're helping kids from across the state and letting people meet each other that might not normally meet each other. And then we can have a stronger education system for the whole thing. So you might be asking yourself, where do I find this information? We're launching a website. It's called itrreportcard.org. Visit that website. You can pull up your individual school district's information. You can look at any school district in the state. Again, it's a continuation of our ITR local program, except we have performance data on there. We have data on open enrollment, the number of ESAs that are per district, your student to teacher ratios, the number of special needs students in there, poverty levels. We tried to pick the most important data that a parent or a school board member would need to have a good conversation and benefit their community moving forward so that good informed decisions can be made.
Yeah, there are a number of things on there that I saw that I just think are outstanding. And in Iowa in particular, with a new education savings account program and a really strong open enrollment program. And I've looked at other states where they have open enrollment, but there are very low participation rates. In Iowa, I noticed there's a very strong participation rate. And so you can actually see on this tool if a school district is bleeding students or attracting students. And then that's a really good indicator of which school districts have policies that need to be followed. And as the education savings account program grows, that's only going to put increasing financial pressure on districts. And so in order to keep accelerating the outcomes, dollars are going to have to be allocated very effectively.
So ultimately, we thought about why should Iowans care about this project and why is this so important? And it's because education isn't just about our kids. It's about our communities, our workforce, and really Iowa's future. Taxpayers deserve to know if their dollars are being used to truly improve student achievement, because none of us have a problem spending money on education. The problem comes when the spending does not equate the outcomes that we think are reasonable or good for our children. So please visit our website at itrreportcard.org and see your school district's profile and get involved. The more we are all engaged in this, the better results that we'll get for our kids, our schools, and Iowa's future.